Hey everybody, Whitney LaBrie here, and today I thought it'd be really fun to take these rocks and paint them and make them look like miniature food. Now what I love about this is that you can pretty much get rocks anywhere. I picked up all of these rocks down by the river that washes into our ocean here in Ventura, and I basically just went down there and tried to pick up as many small rocks as I could find. I really didn't have any specific foods in mind when I was looking for them. I was just trying to get sizes that I could work with, if that makes sense. So to prep my rocks, I washed them and then dried them, and then I just brushed them with a craft toothbrush, and now they're pretty much ready to be painted. The first three rocks that I see here, when you see them, what do you think of? When I look at them, I see a piece of toast and 2 eggs sunny side up. These are my inspiration pictures and what I'm going to attempt to make these little rocks look like, and here's some toast with a little pat of butter. To make it a little bit easier for me to paint these, I did hot glue the rocks to each end of a toothpick, and then I went ahead and primed them by painting them white, and then it'll be really easy for me to peel these off of the hot glue when I'm done and when they're all dry and ready to go. You can see I did the same thing with the little piece of toast. So the colors I'm using for both of these projects, I'm going to be using white, a cream color, an antique gold color, and a sunny yellow for the yolk, and of course I'm going to use a little bit of my melted chocolate as well. So starting with the base coat for the eggs, I've already primed them with the white, so I'm just going to add a little bit of my melted chocolate to the edges just to give them more of a fried look. Once that's completed, I just add a little bit more of that cream color to even out any edges that I didn't really care for that were a little bit too thick. And then I would take my golden yellow, that antique gold color, and that is going to be the main center of my yolk. And then just to highlight a little bit, I'm taking that sunny yellow and just dotting the centers. And then I'm going to let them set aside and dry. For the toast, I'm taking my milk chocolate brown. I'm going to go ahead and edge them out. And then I'm doing a combination of my cream and my melted chocolate and a little bit of a color called golden brown to just, of course, brown the center of my toast. Now the toast took me a little while. I did a couple different coats, a couple different shades because I just wasn't getting it quite right. This is the first time I've ever painted rocks, and so I just wasn't quite sure of the consistency and texture, and so I kind of played with it a little bit. But then once I got the color and everything that I really felt good about, I went ahead and added just a little square pat of butter to one side of my piece of toast. And then at this point my eggs were dry, so I just took a bristle brush and did a quick little light dab of my black paint and then dabbed my little eggs very quickly to give it the look of being peppered. Now, once they're dry, I am adding some diamond glaze to give them added dimension, and basically they're going to be done at that point, unless I totally hate them and have to repaint them. Another breakfast option I love, and I have a rock that I could use for, is pancakes. I had this really flat round rock and I thought that it would make a perfect pancake. I only have one, so it's just gonna have to be like one pancake or maybe the eggs and the toast with a side of pancake. So I'm starting off by painting the base coat of it in a sand color, and then I'm gonna add a golden brown to the top as well as my melted chocolate. Now for the syrup, I'm adding a very thick amount of the melted chocolate paint so that it'll give the look of a nice syrupy coat. I'll add a little bit of yellow for a butter, but I'm going to smooth it out a little bit because I do want it to look melted. And then when I add my diamond glaze to this, I'm only going to add it to the syrup and butter area, to give that area a little bit of a raised dimension so that would look like syrup. And then I'll go ahead and let both of those dry. And then here it is in the context of the dollhouse. You could see how the end result looks here. The toast, the eggs, and then a pancake as well. All right, so let's talk a little about meat. So I have a rock that I think would make a really good T-bone steak, and I'll show you that. And then I thought also I have a couple rocks that might be good for making a ribeye and maybe a side of mashed potatoes. So you can see here that this is gonna be the T-bone steak, and I'm gonna make it raw. So I have this other rock here that I think would make a good ribeye, and then this one is kind of an interesting shape that might make a good mashed potato side. So starting with that T-bone, I'm going to be using a combination of a tomato red, a barn red, and a little bit of a sand color. And hopefully I can mix these and give it the look of a rare T-bone steak. So of course the base coat's going to be that tomato red. And pretty much what I noticed, I don't know if it's just such a small area, but the acrylic paints dried really quick on these rocks. And I don't know if it's because they tend to be a little bit more porous and they're really just absorbing that paint or what, but anyway, this project really didn't take me that long. I think the only time I had issues was if I felt like it wasn't looking right and had to repaint, which really only happened with the toast. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of my barn red here over that tomato. Again, not painting the entire thing, just different areas of it to give, again, more dimension, highlights, and lowlights. And then once that's done, now I'm going to add a little bit of my sand color. I'm going to mix it with both the barn red and the tomato red because I want to start adding the fattier areas of the T-bone and the actual bone. And it looks like it's a nice combination. It's not totally cream. It's got a little pink in it. I'm trying to combine my paint colors to really give it that realistic look. Now, behind the paint that you don't see in the frame here is my computer, and I have a picture of the T-bone steak, and that's what I'm referencing. And for all the food that I'm painting here today, and I think that's a good idea for you to have a picture as well, so you can stay as close as you can to what you're seeing in order to make it as realistic as possible. So I'm just going back and forth, adding the fat, adding the bone, and then I did add a little bit of fat to the center, and I think actually that added a lot to it. And of course I will diamond glaze this as well once it's dry. And here it is on the grill. This might be one of my favorite of all of them, although I like all of them for different reasons. For the ribeye and for the mashed potatoes, I'm going with a combination of a creamy white, because obviously mashed potatoes aren't white. And then right in the center, I'm adding a caramel color to simulate a gravy center. Now in the photo, the gravy didn't have any butter on it, but I like a little butter on my mashed potatoes, so I might add butter. I don't know. For the ribeye though, I am going with a dark chocolate, letting that dry. Then I'm just going to stipple in some with my bristle brush, some charred edges. And then I will paint in also some char marks right down the center of that. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little butter and see what I think. And honestly, I didn't like it, and so I removed the butter, painted over it with the caramel color again. And I'm going to leave it like that for the video, but I don't know, I keep going back and forth, and I might add some butter later. So there's the ribeye and the mashed potatoes. So what do you guys think? Should I add the butter back in for a little pop of color or not? I don't know. The other thing I did add was the diamond glaze. And if you notice in that photo, the ribeye is quite charred. And I think it's because it wasn't really fully dry when I added the diamond glaze. So I think I'm going to have to go back over that with a little bit of the chocolate and kind of give it a little bit more distinguished look there with the grill marks, because it looks, like I said, pretty charred. All right, for the next food item, I have a rock that's kind of in the shape of a Subway or a hoagie sandwich. And you can see here that shape. And so I thought, hey, this would obviously make a good sandwich. I did consider turning it into a hot dog as well, but it felt too long to make for a hot dog. I think it was the wrong scale. So I'm just going to go with a hoagie. And I'm using a color called latte as the base for the bread. And then the top coat, I'll be using a color called golden brown. And for the center where the lettuce and the tomatoes and the meat would go, I'm using a combination of a leaf green for the lettuce, a tomato red, that makes sense, and then I'm mixing the tomato with just a little bit of white just to give it a pinker color so it would look more like pastrami maybe, or bologna or something like that. And I'm just trying to use my thinnest, smallest paintbrush that I could find. Actually, I had to buy one for this because I'm pretty hard on my paintbrushes. So anyway, it worked out. And then for the top, I used my little bristle brush again, and I dipped it very lightly in a sand color because I want to just lightly tap the top of that hoagie bun to kind of give it the look of sesame seeds on the top or seasoning on the top. And then there it is. I wrapped it in a little piece of tissue to make it look like a little Subway sandwich. sitting inside a wrapper. Moving on, I have this other rock that looks like a big slice of cake, and I really love the idea of maybe adding a lot of color since we haven't had too much color, and I thought a rainbow slice cake would be really fun. So here's my slice. You can see here it's like got a little bit of a triangle shape, and it's not perfect. It's not a perfect triangle, but I think it's gonna work. So I've got all my rainbow colors out here. I'm just gonna go straight down the rainbow, do red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Paint that out. And once that's dry, I'm going to take a off-white color as the icing. I'll paint the outside, and then I will add in these stripes in between just so it looks like there's icing in between those layers. And then that's what you get there, and we will go ahead and add that to a plate and then add that to our table next to our little hoagie sandwich. Now, I'm doing a lot of meat today, so I apologize to those who are not meat eaters. But I do have a rock, and I don't know, maybe I was hungry. I'm hungry now just trying to edit this video. I have a rock that looks a little bit like a rump roast. I should have glued it the other way on the stick to make it easier for you to see when I paint it. But I'm going to basically do a dark chocolate brown on the outside. And for the center, I'm going to start off with my tomato red, and I'm going to add some white because I want to have more of an outer pink edge to it with a little bit of a darker pink to the center so that it does look like a cooked piece of rump roast. And once that's painted, I'll pounce on a little bit of black to give it a cooked look. And for this one, I did add some diamond glaze to it as well, but I really only added it to the pink area to make it look nice and juicy. And there it is sitting top of the stove in my dollhouse kitchen. For the next project, for the next painted rocks, I want to do a sandwich and a slice of fruit, a slice of watermelon. And I have this little triangle shape here that's going to be my watermelon. The other side, I've got more of a sandwich shape, like a croissant almost, but not quite, but I figured like a gourmet sandwich shape anyway. So of course, I'm going to start with some of my red. I'm going to mix it with some white and give it obviously more of a pink watermelon color. For the edge, I will paint it with a green, and then I'm going to, of course, add a little bit of white in between the pink and green to give it that distinct watermelon characteristic. And I will add 3 little black dots to look like little tiny seeds. And man, I had to really get in close on that to make sure that I did it right. And for the sandwich, I'm going to be using some of the same colors that I've used. So I'm just doing a golden brown for the top and the base. And I'm adding in some greens, some reds, and a little bit of yellow on this one, like for mustard or something like that on this sandwich. And then for the top of it, I added just 3 little lines in a light cream color to give dimension. And then, of course, I will be adding my diamond glaze to these as well. And then there is my sandwich on a plate and my little tiny slice of watermelon. I do have a couple rocks that look like big loaves of bread, more like the gourmet, like the round breads and a big square piece of bread, not like your typical loaf for sandwich making, more like a sourdough or something. And so one has a little chunk missing too out of it, so it looked like maybe someone grabbed a piece of it. But here they are, and I've already primed them, as you can see. And then these, I'm basically just taking that stippling brush and I'm just pouncing on some creams, some golden browns, and some melted chocolate to give it more of a golden brown edge. And I'm going to do that with both of the breads. Now for the one that's missing the chunk, I'm leaving that a creamier color to the center so that it would look like that piece of the bread has been removed or cut off, and that'll give it a little bit more realistic look. And then the same with the little square piece. I'm doing basically the same color combination. And then I just added some stripes to the top, some slicing stripes, I guess. I don't even know what that's called, but like when you cut the bread. I'm not a bread maker, obviously, but I'm sure there's some technical term for that. When they're dry, I'm going to add them to a little basket with a little piece of material in them with our ribeye and our mashed potatoes. Okay, and then here they are again, just all together, everything that we did today. And I have to tell you, this was really fun. I really enjoyed this. I definitely would do this project again. It cost me absolutely nothing to make. This was the first time I've ever painted rocks. I really did enjoy it. I was surprised of how much I liked it. I think with a little bit more practice, I could definitely get better at this. And again, this was a free craft basically. I just went to the beach and I picked up a couple little pebbles. But let me know what you think of this project. Is this something that you would do? Did you like how everything turned out today? If you did, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. Love to hear from you. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that so you don't miss any future content. Thank you so much for being here this week. Thank you for hanging out with me. As always, I enjoyed it. And remember, in this crazy world, it is the little things that matter. Bye!